The House That Doesn't Breathe. My name is Adam Bradley. I'm 35 years old. I work as an interior designer, and I live with my wife, Elena, and our little daughter, Holly, who hasn't even turned 6 yet. In mid-2023, we decided to leave city life behind and move somewhere quieter. New York was suffocating us from every angle. High rent, constant noise, and that persistent feeling of being trapped. We needed a fresh start. A slower life. A life where we could hear birds instead of police sirens. During our search, we found a house in a semi-rural area of Florida, just south of a small town called Graston. The house was old but charming. 2 stories, creaky wooden floors, a front porch wrapped in climbing plants, and a backyard that looked like an abandoned painting. Strangely, the price was incredibly low for what it offered. I asked the real estate agent, and he replied in a tone that tried to hide something. The previous owners passed away, and there are no relatives interested in the place. I brushed it off. Old houses always come with stories. That's normal. We arrived at the house in late August. The sun was beginning to set as we stood in front of it for the first time. Elena held onto my arm and whispered, "Do you smell that? It's like the house isn't breathing." I laughed. I thought she was joking. But after that night, I wished I had believed her from the start. The first night was eerily quiet. Too quiet. No insects, no barking dogs, not even a breeze. It felt like the place was closed in on itself. Around midnight, I woke up to the sound of footsteps on the wooden floor above my head. I assumed Elena was up, but when I turned, she was right beside me, sound asleep. I got up slowly, grabbed my flashlight, and headed upstairs. The second floor was still. I checked Holly's room. She was fast asleep. But strangely, her doll, which she always keeps by her side, was lying by the door. I went back down. Maybe it fell. Maybe I imagined the sound. But it happened again the next night. Then, we noticed something even stranger. Every morning, we'd find the storage room door beneath the staircase wide open, even though we locked it with a key every night. I tried chaining it shut, but by morning, the chain would be undone, as if something inside refused to be locked away. On the 4th night, I had a nightmare. I was standing in a dark basement, and a tall woman in a black dress was slowly walking toward me. She had no face, only 2 black eyes shining in the darkness. She whispered, "You brought them. Don't let them out." I woke up, screaming, only to find Holly standing at the foot of the bed, staring at me with wide eyes, saying, "Daddy." The lady in my room said not to turn off the light. I looked at Elena. She was trembling, whispering, "Adam." I heard it too. I heard her whisper in my ear, "Don't close the door." That night, we left all the lights on, and for the first time, we began to feel like this place didn't want us here. After that night, everything changed. We no longer slept normally. The hallway light stayed on all night, and Holly refused to sleep alone. Every time we turned the lights off, she would come back to us, trembling, whispering the same sentence. She's sitting by the chair, watching me. I asked her, "Who?" She replied, "The woman with the long hair. She talks to the dolls." At first, I thought it was just the imagination of a little girl adjusting to a new home. But I no longer had the courage to doubt her, not after what we began to hear with our own ears. The following night, as I worked on my laptop in the living room, I heard the bedroom door slowly creak open. Then, soft footsteps approaching me. I assumed it was Elena, but when I turned, there was no one there. I stood up quietly and walked toward the hallway. Just as I reached the staircase leading to the second floor, every light in the house went out. In an instant, darkness swallowed the room. A chill crawled down the back of my neck. Then, from the top of the stairs, I heard a voice, a faint, feminine whisper, like someone chanting something. It wasn't a clear sentence, more like a ritual. Al-Mahdur, Sarfa, Ruh. It didn't sound human. It sounded like it came from the belly of a house that didn't want to be forgotten. I quickly pulled out my phone, turned on the flashlight, and climbed upstairs. No one. I entered our bedroom. Elena was asleep. Then I looked over at Holly's bed. She wasn't there. My heart dropped. I rushed through the house, guest room, bathroom, kitchen, nothing. I started shouting, "Holly! Holly!" Then I heard her doll playing a lullaby downstairs, even though it only plays when you press its belly. I raced down the stairs. I swear I saw a long shadow pass in front of the kitchen. I followed it, running, and then I heard Holly crying from under the stairs, inside the locked storage room. How did she get in there? I yanked the door open. She was sitting in the darkness, clutching her doll, crying, saying, "She told me to come to her. She said not to be scared. She said she was a mom too." I grabbed her and held her tightly. My heart was pounding like war drums. I looked around the dark room and felt something I can't describe. Like someone was watching us. Like we were never truly alone in this house. The next day, I decided to investigate. I went to the public library in Graston. I asked the librarian for the neighborhood archives and gave him our address. 1 Ofbofwamfobive, Sabrina Street. He looked at me, then lowered his voice and said quietly, "That house, you've got the nerve to live there?" I asked. "Why? What's the story?" He pulled out a thin, tattered file. The name written on it. Edith Myers. I read through it, and every inch of my body froze. The house we were living in was once the site of seances, spirit-summoning rituals. Its owner, a woman named Edith, was known among the townspeople as the Connected Mother, because she claimed she could communicate with the spirits of lost children. But in 1968, during one of her sessions, part of the house mysteriously caught fire. Her body was never found. They said she vanished. They also said she never left. After I returned from the library, Elena and I sat down in the kitchen, and I told her everything. Page by page, name by name, I recounted what I had read about Edith Myers. I told her that the woman who still haunted the memories of this house wasn't just a hobbyist of the cult, but had performed real, secret rituals in an underground chamber. Spirit summoning rites, some of which, in the documents I found, reportedly involved blood, salt, and strands of human hair. Elena remained silent. She didn't interrupt. She held her coffee cup with trembling fingers, staring at me as if waiting for me to say, "It's all a joke." But I didn't. That night, while Holly was sleeping in bed between us, I noticed something about the wall in the storage room. There was an acoustic void. When I tapped it with my finger, the sound was different, hollow, like there was an empty space behind it. The next day, I removed the wooden shelves and started peeling away the drywall. It didn't take long. Within an hour, I found something I never expected. A small iron door, barely as wide as my shoulders, with a stone staircase behind it leading downward. The space was cold, damp, and heavy with dust. It smelled like rust and ash. I turned on my phone's flashlight and began to descend. The stairs led to a circular room. Its walls were covered in symbols, scratched in with fingernails or something sharp. A large circle was drawn on the floor, surrounded by extinguished old candles, and in the corner, a small leather journal coated in a fine layer of soot. I opened it. Every page bore a name and a date, followed by phrases in a language I didn't recognize. But one name pulled me in immediately. Holly Bradley, 2023. I stood frozen, blinking to make sure I wasn't seeing things. But the name was there, clearly written, in a different handwriting from the rest, almost fresh. My daughter's name, this year's date, as if someone had been expecting us, as if we weren't the ones who chose this house. The house had chosen us. In the following days, the whispers grew louder, not just at night, even in broad daylight. In the bathroom, the kitchen, the laundry room, words I couldn't understand, but carrying a dark undertone, like they were saying, "Do not stop the rites. Do not seal the circle." Elena began to wither. She would speak in her sleep, but it wasn't her voice. Sometimes she'd wake up in the middle of the night, look at me, and say in a cold, unfamiliar tone, "The child won't be enough." Once I found her in Holly's room, holding our daughter's head gently and whispering strange, repetitive phrases into her ear. When I stepped closer, she turned to me, and her eyes were pitch black. Then, she closed them and collapsed to the floor. I rushed her to the doctor. He found nothing wrong. I started to wonder, are we being slowly pulled into something invisible? Are we guests in a house that doesn't welcome the living? Was Holly the target all along? After Elena's sudden collapse that night, I began to feel that something deeper, older, was rooted in this place. Something invisible, but breathing from beneath the ground. I decided to confront it. I bought a high-sensitivity audio recorder, the kind used by researchers of so-called electronic voice phenomena, or EVP. I had read about it on forums dedicated to haunted places. They say it can capture voices the human ear can't hear, spirit voices. On the first night, I placed the device in the storage room, near the door leading to the basement. I turned it on and let it record until morning. The next day, I listened to the audio. The first minutes were ordinary. The sounds of the house settling, rustling trees, creaking wood. But at minute 32 and 14 seconds, I heard a whisper. A faint, hesitant, feminine whisper. "He doesn't know." My eyes slowly widened. My head spun. I replayed the clip again and again. I wasn't imagining it. Then, a minute later, came another voice. Deeper. Like a man's voice, or something trying to sound like a man. "Do not break the circle. Blood has been spilled." Then, 5 minutes of complete silence. And after that, an eruption of noise, like doors slamming, like someone screaming underwater. The recording ended. But I didn't return to who I was. I started hearing the voices without the recorder. In the kitchen, when I was alone, I'd hear footsteps approaching. And then nothing. In Holly's room, her dolls were arranged in strange patterns, circles, with one blackened, burnt-faced doll in the center. Elena was no longer Elena. She started sleepwalking. She would leave the bed and go down to the basement. She'd stay there for over an hour, then return with her eyes half shut. One night, I decided to follow her. I waited until she quietly got out of bed, then trailed behind her in complete silence. She went downstairs, entered the storage room, opened the iron door slowly, and descended the stone steps. As I reached the basement door, I heard her voice, but it wasn't Her voice. It was layered, multi-voiced, like hundreds of throats speaking through her. She was repeating a single phrase over and over. I was made from them, and I will bring them back. I slowly opened the door. She was standing in the middle of the circle carved into the floor, holding the candle I never lit. Blood, thick and black, was running from her left eye. When she turned to face me, she didn't speak. She just smiled. And then, the candle blew out. The room plunged into absolute darkness. I panicked, stumbled, hit the wall, fell to the ground. I screamed her name, but heard nothing in return. When I finally made it out, the clock read 5 a.m. I walked into our bedroom and found Elena sleeping peacefully in bed, as if she'd never left. Days passed as I tried to convince myself that this wasn't madness, that there had to be a logical explanation for everything, that I was just exhausted, overwhelmed, that the stress of the move, the lack of sleep, and my fear for my family had fabricated all this in my mind. But every attempt at rationalization crumbled beneath the weight of the whispers, Holly's terrified eyes, and the black blood that bled from Elena's eye. One night, I went back into the basement alone. For the first time since the incident, I reopened the leather-bound journal. That's when I started noticing something strange. The pages weren't arranged by time, but by something else, something spiritual. Each page represented a process, and each process was tied to a name, a date, and a carved sigil within a circle. There were many names, some crossed out, some written in red, and some, this is when I started trembling, were repeated more than once. Then, I came across a blank page, almost blank, except for a single sentence, written in a different hand than the rest. If you have opened this page, then the ritual has already begun. Above it, at the top of the page, was my full name. Adam Charles Bradley. Below it, in smaller writing, your soul is the bridge. Your daughter is the door. At that exact moment, I heard a sound behind me. I turned quickly. Nothing. Then the flashlight cut out, and then a soft female voice right behind me whispered, "You're too late, Adam. Holly chose us from the beginning." I screamed and threw the book. I ran. But I felt something cold brush against the back of my neck, like fingers trying to slow me down. I made it upstairs, slammed the iron door shut, and pushed furniture in front of it. I decided then I would burn the journal. But when I went to find it the next day, it was gone. I asked Elena. She didn't respond. She looked pale, hollow, her eyes never meeting mine. And when I walked into Holly's room, I found her drawing on the walls. Circles. Circles. Overlapping circles, each identical to the patterns I'd seen carved in the basement floor. I asked her, "Who taught you those symbols?" She answered calmly, "Not me. The lady who lives underneath us." Then, just as I was about to leave the room, she whispered. She said, "You have to choose. Either you or Mommy." After Holly whispered, "Either you or Mommy," I felt something click, like we had crossed a threshold with no way back. That same night, I woke up to a muffled scream. I shot up. Elena wasn't next to me. Neither was Holly. I rushed downstairs. A faint, flickering light leaked from under the basement door. Candles. I opened the door slowly. The sounds came from below, moaning, sobbing, and the distinct crack of something breaking. I descended quietly, eyes barely adjusting to the dancing shadows. In the center of the room stood Elena, trembling inside the carved circle, her eyes wide open in shock. But she wasn't alone. She was there. Yes, for the first time I saw the entity. A tall woman with thick white hair covering her entire face, wearing a soaked dress that looked like it had been pulled from a grave. Her limbs were impossibly long. From her chest came a gurgling sound, like water sloshing inside. She stood behind Elena, whispering into her ear, holding her arm like she was nothing but a rag doll. Then she looked at me. Not by turning her head, but by pulling the hair away from her face, revealing pure black eyes. No whites. And then she smiled. It wasn't a human smile. I looked at Elena and pleaded, "Elena, come to me, please!" But she didn't respond. Instead, she whispered the same sentence I saw in the journal. "Your soul is the bridge. Your daughter is the door." Then, from the corner of the basement, I heard it. Holly's cry. She was inside a metal cage that hadn't existed before. It was like the basement itself had changed. I ran toward her, but the ground shook beneath me. 2 hands burst out from the stone walls, grabbing my legs, trying to drag me inside. I screamed, clung to the wall, kicked, fought, and somehow pulled myself free. I grabbed a metal rod from the floor, used it to draw a broken circle on the ground, and read from one of the torn journal pages I had snatched. The circle isn't sealed with intention, but with sacrifice. I froze. I looked at Holly, then Elna, then the woman, and I understood. She didn't just want souls. She wanted a decision, a choice, a sacrifice. I screamed, "I choose myself. Take me. Just let them go." The candles extinguished instantly, and everything vanished. I woke up lying on the bedroom floor. Elena beside me, sleeping. Holly tucked in her bed, like nothing had happened. But I knew it wasn't a dream, because the metal rod was still in my hand, and the circle was still drawn on the floor, beneath the carpet. 3 days had passed since the incident in the basement. Elena and I didn't talk much. We didn't ask each other what had happened, as if there was a silent agreement between us, silence, because speaking might bring it back. But the truth, we never really left that place. On the 4th day, I packed our bags and said firmly, "Elena, book a hotel. Any city. We just need to leave tonight." She didn't argue. She didn't object. Even Holly, despite her young age, looked at me with wide eyes and said, "She'll find us, won't she?" I shivered. I told her no, but I wasn't sure. We left the house in the evening at 6:30 p.m. We got in the car. I drove fast with no clear direction. I just wanted to get away, to leave that place behind. But after 20 minutes on a rural road, I saw the sign. Sabrina Street, 2 miles. I stopped abruptly, turned around, took another road. An hour passed, then 2. And I saw the same sign again, as if all roads led to the same place. Sabrina Street. I turned back, pulled out my phone. No signal. The map showed nothing. Elena started crying. Holly had fallen asleep, but she was talking in her sleep. She's behind us, but walking slow. At midnight, I stopped in front of an abandoned gas station. I went in to make an emergency call, but inside the booth, I found an old woman sitting quietly behind the counter, staring at me for a long moment before saying, "You were in her house, weren't you?" I asked in a low voice. "Whose house?" She said, "Edith's house. She chooses you. You don't live in it. It lives in you." I asked her, "How do I stop it?" She gave a sad smile and said, "You can't, but you might learn to live with it. Some do. Others, they go back." I asked, "How many went back?" She replied, "Most, and the ones who didn't. The house brought them back. I returned to the car. I didn't tell Elena. I drove until dawn. And finally, we reached a small town more than 100 kilometers away. We rented a small apartment. We caught our breath. I convinced myself we had escaped, that we were safe. But a week later, I found a paper on the table in the living room. It hadn't been there the night before. It was torn from an old notebook. On it, faint handwriting, in black ink. Blood has been spilled, but the door never closes. And a name. Holly Bradley. The next day, I received an email, despite not checking my inbox since we left the house. No subject, no sender, just one attached audio file. I opened it, crying. Then a familiar whisper. Adam, the house misses you. On the 13th day, Holly disappeared. The police found no trace of her. No camera footage, no sign of her leaving the building. No witnesses, no fingerprints. On the 14th day, she returned to the house. Yes, the house. And wrote this story. You're reading my confession now. And if you're hearing or watching this, please, never go to 105 Sabrina Street. Even if the price seems too good. Even if you feel like the house is waiting for you. Because the house never forgets. And it never forgives.